Good morning, everyone. How are you? I trust you had a good night's rest and did not have that dulce de leche chocolate, which will put you to sleep. um, this morning, we are going to continue our very good interactions that we had yesterday with lots of discussion around critical matters for our National Meteorological and Hydrological Services and the partners, some of whom are in this room and others who are just starting to develop those relationships. So today we are going to be focusing, at least this morning rather, we're going to be focusing on building capacity. And our panel this morning will be Mr. Kevin Chambers, Senior Hydrogeologist and Head of Resource Monitoring and Data Collection, Water Resources Authority of Jamaica. Kevin, wave your hand. And Mr. Edgard Cabrera, Executive and International Advisor on Marine Meteorology, Oceanography, and Maritime Affairs, formerly Head of the WMO Ocean Affairs and the Division Ocean Affairs Division, as well as being a member of the task force for the UN Ocean Decade for the Tropical Americas and the Caribbean. And online, we've got Mr. Daniel Vila from the regional office of the WMO for the Americas. And he looks like he's on the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm not sure why, but welcome, Danielle. And our fourth panelist is someone we should give a round of applause for agreeing to do this at very short notice, Mr. Dale Destin, Director of the Antigua and Barbuda Meteorological Service and Permanent Representative of Antigua and Barbuda with WMO. Thank you so much, Dale, for agreeing to join us. So what we're going to be talking about in this session is what are some of the barriers to building capacity across our Met services in Latin America and the Caribbean, exploring both human and technical and infrastructural needs, and including identifying what are the kinds of models for funding, for developing skills, and for strengthening the institutions. And what are the ways that we can collaborate on solutions that support the Met services in meeting their national and regional and international obligations. So that's kind of setting the stage for where we're at. And we have a number of key questions. If you had seen the agenda, you would have noticed the list of questions here that we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be talking about understanding the capacity gaps, meeting international and regional obligations, how do we build skills and knowledge, and what are the details in terms of bottlenecks to infrastructure and system capacity being fully realized, and what are some of the challenges with regard to funding, the current funding models. Can we have some innovations in that regard? And so without any further ado, so you can stop listening to me and listening to our esteemed panel, I'm going to start asking some of the questions. And it will not only be to the panel. If you in the audience have something to contribute, do raise your hand and someone will hand you a microphone, or I will run it to you with this one so that you can have your input as well. We had that great engagement yesterday and we want to continue that this morning. Hopefully everyone had coffee or green tea or black tea, right? Something to give you that pep. Okay, so Danielle, you want to say hello? So we can know that you're...
Thank you very much for... can you hear me?
You sound rather low. I'm not sure if that's something can be rectified in the back.
On my side, everything works fine.
It's a little bit better now. Okay, you're good? Everybody way in the back can hear? Wonderful. We can hear you now, Daniel. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. First of all, thank you for having me for this discussion. And I hope that we can talk a little bit about which are the more capacity development framework and how the organization can help, you know, the small island states in the Caribbean and in Region 3 and Region 4, the countries of Region 3 and Region 4, to, you know, mainly close the gaps and make a sustainable approach for these activities. So thank you again for having me, and please go ahead.
Okay, great. So let's go right into this. So what are some of what you think are the biggest shortfalls in terms of human and technical capacity for national meteorological and hydrological services? And I'm opening this to the panel in the room first. Go ahead, Kevin.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
It's so good to be here. Gaps in technical and human capacity is multifaceted, as we have discussed. We have touched on some of them yesterday. And let us start with the gaps in the technical capacities. And I believe that it's largely related to our ability to keep abreast of the improvement in technology, because it goes so fast, so quickly. Technology improve and advance, you know, rapid advancement. Now, software for data analysis is one, and also hardware-wise for data capture and monitoring. And it is also quite costly. And can you imagine a small island developing state like Jamaica? And I'm speaking from the water perspective now, that has 130 stream gauging monitoring sites. And additionally, I might be able to speak on behalf of the Met Services with their sites, and us wanting to, and also from the water side, 33 rainfall intensity gauges, and we want to modernize those sites with the technologies that are out there. The challenge that we face to upgrade, modernize, build infrastructure as it relates to having adequate financing, that is a huge gap that we face when it comes on to the technology side. Yes, it's out there, but accessing it. And then now, if we do access, then there's a challenge to maintain. And that is another issue that we face. And it all comes down to our ability to finance our operation. Yes, government will finance, but that oftentimes is inadequate. For the water sector where I work, right, my organization is an authority. So we generate money, right? I can't say that for the Met Services. They are a unit within a ministry. They don't have that capacity. They do have the capacity, but they are not allowed to. And that is something that perhaps we need to explore. We need to explore it, our decision makers, to have them looked at. So for technology-wise, the gap is there. We're not getting the financing that we require. I pass on to my colleague here.
Hi, good morning, and thanks for having me. Short notice. From my perspective, I'm from an island of 180 square miles, 100,000 persons. One of our challenge, or maybe our greatest challenge in terms of capacity, is that of the fact that we have a challenge in the broader population with respect to individuals who are doing well at STEM subjects. And so that limits the ability to recruit persons with the background and foundation that could excel in our area. So that's one of the challenges that we face. The second would be that of financial resources to um, bring those persons up to the level where they can function and perform at the level that they're required to. That has some limitations. Um, we do have some internal structures that would support higher education, but again, resources are quite limited in that regard. But another point would be that of assessing the staffing that is required. I don't know that we have paid sufficient attention to looking at the critical mass of numbers within our services that would be required to deliver on the things that we asked to deliver on. We asked to deliver on early warning for all. What exactly would that look like in terms of staffing structure so as to be adequately able to deliver on early warning for all and all the other requirements or the services that we asked to deliver on. So perhaps that should probably come in at the front end once you would have made that assessment as to the personnel and the skill sets that you require in-house, then you go about seeking to fill that out. So those are my thoughts on that question.
Thank you, Dale. So Edgar, and then we will get sort of the regional perspective from Danielle.
Yeah, thank you, Arlene, and thank you very much for this panel. Perhaps I will make a reflection because I am by background, I am a physical oceanographer and former Navy officer, and I spent more than 15 years in the WMO working on the marine division, and have make several assessment on, especially here in Northern Latin America. Okay, Latin America and the Caribbean is the role of this panel, but I will focus on the Caribbean. The distribution of the Caribbean is different, no, on the capacity. So we cannot see the Western Caribbean and the Eastern Caribbean are different. So we need to understand how to enhance the role of the med services or the capacity of the med services, because they are different. So as mentioned, perhaps one of the main importance is how the med service will contribute to the overall role on this early warning system, or early warning for all. Or as Arlene mentioned, we are working on this tropical Americans and the Caribbean ocean decade science, and the role of the med service is really critical. But when we assess the function that they need to perform, perhaps there is what we need to build this gap, and the gap is assessed, but the situation is how we will build this let's say standardize the performance of the med service in a very complex region.
Okay, thank you, Edgar. For giving us that marine perspective. That's not often heard in these kinds of, and we certainly had that discussion yesterday that we are tiny dots in a large ocean, and that ocean is not well sampled, not well observed, and only recently have we been really upgrading our meteorological service training in marine meteorological and oceanic services. So Danielle, you have that regional perspective. Is there anything you would like to add to what was already said?
Yes, no, one important thing that from WMO is supporting through our mobilization department, the resource mobilization department, is to engage the countries in different projects. But I believe from what I heard from the speakers, one important thing to work with, and perhaps some resources from the project is important to work on, that is about socio-economical benefits of meteorological and hydrological service, and also oceanographic service. because at the end, of course, to get some kind of sustainability of the services, we need to get the countries engaged. But at some point, we need to demonstrate the benefits, the socioeconomic benefits of our work to the country. I believe that some studies have been done on this regard, but we need to continue to doing that to to get the sustainability that we need for these approaches. Of course, there are several projects going on in the region, like the SOC. We were together last week in Jamaica regarding to this very important regional project where, of course, capacity development is included in the package. But from my perspective, it's important to get the government involved doing this kind of studies for the region. Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you very much. Actually, you made a point that will be covered later in our symposium, which is Belize's experience with having just completed that socioeconomic benefit analysis with the UK Met. I had the privilege of being there for part of that process with the UK Met group, and we are looking forward to what was learned from Belize being expanded to other Met services so that they can make that case for expanded capacities and for the services from the country to be enhanced to the Met services. You're waving your hand. You have something else to add on this topic?
Yes. I want to touch on the human resources capacity a little bit. And this is not something that we often discuss, in length at forums like these. Now, based on my observation, persons entering the profession are not, back in the days, were driven by a love for the environment, the natural environment and the natural systems. Mm-hmm. And what I have observed over the years is that that is less so the case. And what I've also observed is that critical thinking, problem solving, analytical skills that we need in the profession is lacking amongst our new recruits. And also attitude towards work, frankly, left much to be desired. And so HR, and we can't leave out HR, has a critical role to play in identifying the right skill sets, the right persons with the mindset to carry on, because we are getting older, right? And one day we are going to leave this profession. So for future, we need to identify those recruits who will be committed to the task as much as we are. We can't shy away from these discussions. So our organizations have to be innovative when recruiting, ensuring that critical roles are filled by persons with the desire to carry on the work and the fight as we are fighting, because we are fighting. So in that vein, HR, in order to enhance the human capacity, has to develop an inclusive based type of staff engagement that will show people, the younger persons especially, but more so everybody, that to foster and promote a sense of belonging, of oneness, knowing that, listen, I am an important part of this process. My work is valued. So we have to focus on these things, right? The STEM, in Jamaica now it's STEAM. The STEM graduates, as you mention of, they're not staying. Right? for many reasons that we won't get into. And also we have to identify opportunities for training. This is one such opportunity, and for personal development to send our personnels out to upskill themselves. So training and capacity building opportunities for staff, to upskill themselves. Later on, I think I will touch on the role of the CIMH. But for now, where the gaps in capacity, human resource capacity is concerned, these are some of the things that I think we need to address, to focus on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I know we have a number of directors in the room, and so I'm going to give you an opportunity to address this issue of how do you actually successfully recruit and retain the people in your organization? I know governments have lots of issues with economic needs for the whole country, and often the Met Service gets left behind in terms of increases in salary and so on. What are other incentives that you can give to your staff, or you have given, to help to retain the kind of skill that Kevin was mentioning just now? Anyone in the audience wants to talk about that? Or maybe you're now dealing with this in terms of how do you retain and recruit and retain?
Arlene.
Yes, go ahead, Edgar.
Yes, this reflection is very important, because this public service is a need. So the countries need to encourage or offer not only a benefits but the challenges to the people to be part. There are several examples on the countries. I will mention one in Europe, for example, that once that when you enter to the service, you can be for a long time in serving the Met. But in our countries, especially in the Caribbean, this sustainability is not properly reflected. So it's a challenge, one, to obtain the formation to become meteorologists. No, because the offers to study or to obtain the capacity and the certification is not easy. And once that you enter to the Met Service, the Met Service have not sufficient capacity at the level of the nation to retain this background force, and then come the private sector or other service providers that perhaps use this capacity and for their own purpose. So in a challenge. So it's the Met Service, the one that need to have the responsibility, yes, but there are other service providers that are using also and complement the need on the country. So it's a reflection that we need to have.
So what I'm hearing is that there needs to be a collaborative approach, a whole government approach, not just looking at the Met Service on its own, but perhaps you can work. I know for Jamaica that your Water Resource Authority works very closely with your Met Service, so that when you need your instruments maintained, or it's a joint effort for some of the network. So that's one method by which you can fill that kind of gap where you're working together. I will give the floor here to the Bahamas and also Grenada. I'm not sure where the other microphone is, so I will give you mine. Here you go.
Oh. Thank you. Ready this time?
Yes, please.
Hi, good morning. Jeffrey Simmons, Director of Bahamas Department of Meteorology. We face all the challenges. Our problems are common, okay? And I guess we just need to start to be a little more innovative in a way and how we gonna. So one of the things that I did was that I looked at and we are doing now is to get some incentive for the staff. So I don't know if some of you do it, but we started paying for holidays. The union came up with something that we encourage, what they call shift allowance or shift premium. What that is that, of course, we are 24/7. So anyone who working between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., they get, I think it's additional $2 an hour onto their pay. It's small, but it's something. And of course, the holiday pay would be double pay. So if you work on a holiday, instead of getting your 1-day pay instead of getting your regular hourly rate, you get double your rate for those hours. So those are a little incentives that we look at. Yes, we tend to look at what you're coming, especially coming out of high school or even out of university, what your qualifications are. And then we find out that it's not really the person that we end up picking someone with a pretty face and a bad character. So the way we deal with that, the route we are taking now to deal with that is that you will not be hired permanently. You'll be hired initially on a 2-year contract, which means that 2 years, we got some time to get to know each other's. What it can be. It's the science. It's when you study in it, it can be difficult. Then when you get on the job, there are difficulties in terms of some things that you may not be able to. And some people just can't adjust to these things. Some people can't take the idea of people making jokes off them. You need a thick skin in this profession. So you got a time to realize this is what you want. We also got a time to see if you're who we're interested in. Are you taking this serious? The one thing we tell people, we work a shift system. Everybody relies on everybody. So if you decide that you're not gonna do, you have broken the chain, okay? Because when someone have come to work 10 o'clock in the night, 7 o'clock in the morning, they want to go home. They don't want to hear you calling in saying you can't come into work for some flimsy reasons. So these are we want to find if this is if this is what you really want. It's not an easy task. I have done it for some time, and I've tried my best to build, to try to get some things in it. Another thing I think that we can look for as a med service is that we have value, but we also have some monies flying out there, and we need to figure out how we can get them. Okay, I spoke with my air navigation service people and found the things that they were charging. I mean, I did the calculation for a year, what they actually charge for med service, like landing and takeoff for the meteorological information and all those other things like that. Those guys made $1.8 million of us. Really? And you pocketing that? No. I immediately started talking to my financial secretary and say, listen, you need to bring some of that money over here and increase these people's salaries because they're really the ones who bring it in. So we need to identify, we have monies out there. We need to find the monies. We need to identify them. And the bottom line is, no matter how you look at it, no matter how qualified someone is, no matter how committed to the job, they say at the end of the day, they have utility bills to pay, they have school fees to pay, they have groceries to buy. Okay, yeah, I love the job, but I have a life, and I'm looking forward to a comfortable, about a comfortable retirement. Okay, so we need to really address the issues, because as med services, this is something that, in my opinion, my 40+ years around meteorology, is something that we have been kind of like ignoring this big pink elephant sitting in the room and wouldn't address it. Our staff, and tell me I lie, our staff want more money, and the monies are out there. So figure out how we can get it.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Talking about where the rubber hits the road directly. Andre from Grenada, say your name and position. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andre Charles, Assistant Manager of Meteorology at Grenada Met Services. Yes, we do have a challenge, but As my Bahamian colleague has stated, some of those incentives that they offer, we also offer those from the union side of things. The thing we have going for us is that we're a young Met Service. We're a very small staff. So there's this camaraderie among members of staff. And at the same time, we have much room for expansion. So staff are willing to be a part of that project to expand the Met Office. Phase right now is recruiting staff into the department. Not that there's a limit to them, but there's a skill set and the quality that we come with. And these days we realize that staff are coming in, while they might present a proper CV, good interview session, but when you settle in the system, in the role, you realize the issues we have with them. So it's addressing that shortcoming. And for the past, let me say, 5-7 years, we have been transitioning in terms of our staffing unit. Most of the senior members have retired, so we have a pretty young staff. I think the oldest is our director, and then the gap between himself and the second oldest is almost 20 years. So it's pretty young, and we have that going for us. And there's an appetite for those who are there to see the unit expand. Is something we have as a major incentive to keep them around. So that's it from us.
Thank you very much. I know Danielle has a question online or a comment to be made. Go ahead, please.
Yes, no, just a comment, a couple of comments, I would say. First of all, one important thing I believe, one incentive for the people who is working in the Met and Meteorological Service is that we belong to a big family. We are WMO. We are the World Meteorological. You are part of WMO. You are part of the World Meteorological Organization, and you need to be proud of that because we are a big family. And I have many examples that, for example, in trainings, that you can get a very good teamwork in spirit in terms of, for example, I can tell you about the training in Trinidad and Tobago with 2.0. This team was fantastic, and they're still in contact to build this system and to keep this running. And this is very enthusiastic people who are working on that. So I believe it's also important to mention this because we are family. We are part of a big family, of a global family, I would say, that is WMO. On the other hand, it's a completely different issue, but it was mentioned at the beginning. It's important to involve the educational services. There's also some good examples when go to the universities and involve young people to start interact with the meteorological service, and even sometimes during the undergraduate program. There's many other examples, for example, from my country, Argentina, at some time where there's no many students for meteorology, the government approves some scholarships to study meteorology. So this is something quite important, and so a lot of people who don't have, the resources to study at the university, they decide to go with meteorology, with the opportunity at the end to get a job and to start working on this area. So I believe that there's many options there that you can take, and this is everything on my side. Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you very much, Danielle. So I want to ask something else because in terms of the recruitment aspect, Yves, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. I just want to, when I listen to all of the speakers here, when you speak about the skill set, obviously before you go interview to a job, you go to get a degree somehow. I was wondering, in the case of the Caribbean particularly, if there is a need for further collaboration between the Met Service and the universities. I think there's a need to adjust the curriculum. If basically the people that's coming out of university, they don't have the skill set that you expect when you have a job offer, I think the discussion should go beyond looking whether we should adjust the curriculum, what kind of discussion that you're having. For example, in Jamaica with uh, with the University of the West Indies in terms of what they teach the student, the skill set. Obviously, you're not getting everything in the classroom. There is an opportunity for internship as well during the study. But I think this thing needs to be considered because it's really important if you don't provide the skill at the university in function of what is expected in the job market, it's a serious issue. I know that CIMH has been involved as a center for excellence. I was wondering if this curriculum that they currently have been discussed with the Met Service, for example, for students in meteorology and hydrology. But I think it's an important discussion to have.
Eve, and I'll pass to Elmo. Go ahead. Explain your position.
Okay, good morning all. My name is Elmo Burke. I serve as the Director of Meteorology for St. Kitts and Nevis. In relation to recruitment, one of the main issue that we as small islands face is we don't really have much of a say in terms of who coming into the system. Quite too often we have politicians sending somebody and you're just trying to pick the best of the worst. And it's just the reality. However, we started doing from our end is started to raise the threshold in terms of, yes, we understand that you want to hire one of your constituents. However, this is the minimum requirement for the person to eventually go on to study, whether it be at CIMH or at UE. So unless you have that minimum educational requirement, you're not going to be a fit for us. Additionally, what we started doing in terms of retention is starting to offer what we would deem like a competitive salary. Our salary is way better than any post that government would offer. And that's the benefit of being a statutory body. So we have that luxury to offer a competitive salary along with some additional perks. So although we're not getting career-driven persons, because most of the individuals who we now see they're coming for a job. So you want the best of those persons, and then you're hoping that while they have a job and not a career, eventually as they study long enough, they can transition from a job mindset to as a small med service face, especially in the region these days. Thanks.
Hello, good day, everybody. Well, in my experience dealing with people that's interested in meteorology, the first thing they tell you about is geography. And then you tell them, well, you need physics and mathematics. And in all these schools, they don't really teach them that. But we do that when we do what we call career day or public education. So we tell that to them that physics is very important when you want to get into meteorology, physics and mathematics. Okay. Now, another thing is that we mentioned earlier about keeping abreast of technology, but we also have to keep abreast of the structure of the Met services in the region, because some of the Met services, their structure is very different compared to the structuring of other Met services in the other islands. For instance, for Dominica, we have what is called a senior officer, and all the others are called meteorological assistants. And there's not a proper structure in place where you have director, deputy director, and so on. So when you go to meetings and then you introduce yourself, you'll see that you're a senior meteorological officer. And sometimes some people look at you like, what was that? You know, because it's a different structure. Okay, so another thing is that we might have some good talent and good skills coming into the Met Service. And we have to utilize those skills and talents so that they do not fall asleep and go to other places, because some of them might come with a lot of initiative, a lot of drive, and then they are not utilized properly. And then they move to other institutions. Okay, thank you.
Tension, well, first recruiting the right skill set, and then how do you retain the ones and move them from job to career mindset, and then the incentives that you're able to give within the structure that you have. Go ahead, please, Dale.
Thank you. Many of the points made are quite applicable. I would like to just throw in a couple others, probably reinforce a few that were made. So in terms of recruitment, we have sought to put in a metric to try and measure passion for the job. So that, because we believe that is how we're gonna retain persons. One of the ways we're gonna retain persons, if they have a passion for the job. So we'll be like, why are you interested in meteorology? Do you have a story? I mean, many persons who are into meteorology will have a story of growing up and, something happened weather-wise and they were drawn to the field. So we're trying to assess persons for passion and not just simply by their qualifications, so that we can have at least a higher confidence that they will be around for a while. In terms of the structure of the organization, Marshall mentioned that, but that's very important to provide opportunities to persons. I mean, if many of our services are quite stagnant in terms of you come in, you're in a position 10 years before you can move on to another position. And part of the reason for that is the absence of a proper structure to allow for persons to have career paths. We have sought to address that, and we continue to address that because we think that there room for improvement in that regard. The work environment is also very important. Many of us are still occupying spaces 20, 40 years old with minimal adjustments. Persons would like to know when they come to work, they're comfortable, the roof is not leaking, they don't have to be worried about, stuff like that, being falling and mold and that kind of stuff. And so there's a need to look at our physical infrastructure. I am trying to plant the seed with my government that we need to have a purpose-built Met office so as to be able to deliver on all the services that are required and be comfortable about doing so for extended hours, regardless to the hazard, so that persons can be comfortable in that regard. We have had situations where persons would bring their families to the office because they're not comfortable leaving them there while they are away from them working. So we need to have the physical space to allow for persons to be comfortable in working for extended hours and delivering, having the amenities to deliver on what they asked to deliver on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. So you actually moved on to one of the other questions coming up, and that's with regard to ensuring that the nations can deliver on what are some of the global and regional mandates and obligations. So you mentioned that staff would be needed to be able to respond and to deliver on things that are required. So I want to ask this question in terms of how do you ensure that your nation can deliver on some of the regional and global obligations when something comes to you as the PR and as the director from, say, WMO? What is the process you go through in order to ensure that your nation could deliver on those things? Say, GBON, the Global Basic Observation Network, or the WMO Integrated Global Observation System, as recent examples and early warnings for all.
Right. So our strategy, basically, with respect to such matters, is to tap into our regional partners, our international partners, the CMO, the CIMH, and then reach out as far as possible in that regard. We also aware of certain services that have higher skill levels in certain areas. Belize comes to mind. The Barbados Med Service. We would have, developed rapport with each other, and so from my standpoint, where there are challenges at the local level to deliver on these matters, we'd reach out to our partners, be it the individual med services or to the regional entities.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, as it relates to our international regional obligation, I believe that the region is doing well. And I say that because we support the WMO initiative. For example, at the water sector, we support, we share data to support the WMO water resources report. We also support the International Groundwater Assessment Center, and we support the Global Groundwater Monitoring Network. We are part of these initiatives. And the Met Services, my colleague just speak to it, also support other initiatives such as the GBON, with 2.0, and all other initiatives. So we are part of the discussion and planning on regional and international committees. And we make sure that the decisions taken are aligned with our national interests, our national goals and outcomes where possible. Also, I believe we collaborate as best as we can. And in some areas, yes, there are improvement for others. There are improvement that can be made, but there are collaboration, as my colleague just alluded to. So I do believe that we are making progress as it relates to our obligation on the international and regional scenes. And Dr. Petrona? Persona mentioned, and I don't want it to slip by us. Mentioned, and I think this is part of the discussion too. I collaborating with the university, and just to say that is something we do yearly. For example, we in the water sector, we collaborate with the University of the West Indies. We provide guest lectures on water resources management. We conduct field exercise, train them how to collect data, how to calibrate instruments. So we have that collaboration with UMO now. Perhaps Evan can speak to the collaboration that his department have with them. So that's a very important point. And yes, that is something that we do, each year. We are engaged to collaborate. As a matter of fact, we have an MOU with the University of the West Indies to provide this type of assistance with them.
Thank you, Kevin. Edgar, and then we'll go to Daniela.
It's very important when you mentioned your question on how we will fit or how the members, you see, capital M members, fit with the international obligations, because it's clear that we is transversal, so you need to work with others. So in all the initiatives that you mentioned, this on climate action, on early warning for all, and especially the one that I was responsible for the marine aspect, that is really on the protection of the life of the sea. So sometimes the Met Service the members are responsible, but the Met Service in some cases are not have the mandate internally, so they need to work together. In Latin America, there is an example that, for example, with the Marine, with the navies, they work and they have an agreement and in order to perform, or it's not the case in the Caribbean, but the CIs. So there is a CI services that they need to work together. So we need to understand that these obligations are obligation of the members, capital M, and they need to work together. And coming specific to the question, how is the better arrangement? The better arrangement. So internationally, so there is this, for example, in the case of the oceans, the UN oceans, so all the agencies that need to have a mandate work together, but in replica. So there are this type of alliance on Hydromet, for example, this one that is here in Hydromet, that need to help to make this cooperation to be a success.
Danielle, go ahead, please.
Yes, coming back to some of the comments of my colleagues, I believe that the key word here is partnership. And in the Caribbean, we have very good examples because CMO has been working to get everybody together in the region. And this is a very good case study all around the world. Doing that, this kind of connection and coordination of activities in the Caribbean. And this is something that you can see that how the region move ahead with all the priorities and all the tasks they have to do. So this is something quite valuable, I would say, from WMO point of view. So I believe that
Danielle,
this is yes.
I wanted to bring in some of our private sector partners. And is there anyone here who has been involved in helping any of our WMO members to fulfill their WIS or WIGOS obligations? Anyone? Has anyone been approached by any of the members to say we need to fulfill a WMO requirement and we're seeking partners through a project or anything like that? Anybody involved in internship agreements with the universities in your countries or where your company operates? Do you offer internships for university students? Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so we participate in a couple of internship programs with our universities, particularly Stanford University and University of California, Berkeley. The way this typically works is that the universities pre-select for certain interests. For example, at Stanford, we work with the TopCat program, which is a generally engineering-based organization dedicated to sustainability on campus. They do, I would say, some pre-filtering, both by definition with who ends up applying, and also basic evaluation of the candidates. And then we can come in and we do the second round of evaluation before final selection. ahead of the interns coming on, the program actually provides them with some training, how to act in a workplace, how to have the career mindset that the director of Bahamas was speaking about. And then we come in, provide the on-the-ground training, the internship work. And we actually hire a fair amount of our full-time from internships. And if not, the recommendations that we can provide, follow them through the rest of their time at Stanford or Berkeley and into their early careers.
So would you be interested in expanding that kind of service to the Caribbean?
I think that's something we'd certainly be open to.
Okay, so we'll have some discussions with our universities and also with CIMH, which has some interns. They're not represented here in person, but they have an active internship program now that has been very good. And from my office's standpoint, we do have the Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility, CRIF. They offer internships to a number of our university students, and that's how we've been able to achieve some of our goals with the help of these interns. We've had usually 2 a year, and during pandemic we had 2 remote. But that has been a really valuable connection with CRIF Insurance. I mean, they are collecting premiums from our different countries, and so that's their way of giving back, and all of people whose skills are being improved in terms of contributing to disaster risk reduction, and also helping the places like Met Services. I know recently I see Holly's in the background, and she was able to use an intern to advance things in Turks and Caicos Islands. Their hand up just now. I think David was first, and then Jan.
Thanks. With Campbell Scientific, a lot of our customers are in the university realm, and we have internships at our regional offices. Ours for this region is in Costa Rica. Also, we've made several donations of instrumentation, training kits, not just targeted at our technology, but just generally for that would help in measurement technology, meteorological departments and electronic engineering departments. We've done this in Colombia, in Costa Rica, in the Caribbean. We've offered these training kits, and would willingly continue to do this. And so, we're interested in this topic, but specifically, we've geared our initiatives more toward the universities than the National Hydromet Services.
Thank you so much for that contribution. It's good to hear that there's this engagement already within our regions and between Latin America and the Caribbean. Go ahead, Jan.
So I've informally done a number of internships. As you know, I have lots of connections to Penn State University. So I end up talking to undergraduates, and I'll say to some of the points you guys made, my first question is always, how's your Python? So I believe Python is a critical skill set in modern meteorology. And what I've learned is students say they know Python, but they actually don't. They've figured out the bare minimum necessary to pass whatever class they thought they learned Python in. And I have like 10 ideas a day for data analysis projects. So I usually will structure one where they actually learn Python, and they hopefully learn a valuable analytical skill as part of the process. And I'll say I do it with students from Penn State primarily because that's where I'm connected, but there's no reason this couldn't be from anywhere.
I think the question raised is an excellent one, given the limited resources we have as Met Services. I realize that I know manufacturers are in it for business. It's a business. But as Met Services, we really do need this kind of support in any way possible. And from my experience, some manufacturers are more inclined to assist than others. But I have to say that Met Services on a whole sometimes help other Met Services. And for example, the UK Met Office has helped the region in a huge way. They assisted us with hiring a web developer to help develop the tools. I'll speak about it a little bit tomorrow, that is helping the region. And that's something that's invaluable. So I think manufacturers have to look at the Met Services not just as customers, but actually care for us and say, what can we do to just help? There's no strings attached. We just want to help you. So sometimes I'm very vocal. I go to our manufacturer and I say, hey guys, I know that we're in a business relationship, but I need this, right? And they have been supportive. They've helped us. They have sent test sensors for us to try out, and data loggers. David just mentioned some. We are beneficiaries of that as well. And it's just not a money thing, right? They're just helping us and we appreciate it. So I think businesses have to kind of look at the Met Services and just genuinely have a heart of concern for us and help in whatever way that they can without any benefits. You know, it's just the reality of the situation. And I really have to thank the UK Met Service again, because they never had to do it, but they were willing to invest in us, and it has helped a number of countries. Again, you'll see that tomorrow.
Thank you. We have one other example here from Esri.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Carson and I'm from Esri. So, you know, relevant for the Met and the hydro. It's
private sector panel. And I remember distinctly, there were two private sector people that said something that I have since mentioned a number of times when I'm speaking in other forum. One was, we want the Met Services to survive and as the brokers in the room, because they are required by governments to be transparent. They have to describe what they do very clearly. You know, for example, I used to work at the Weather Prediction Center, the National Weather Service, and they're required by Congress to report their maximum temperature, their minimum temperature, and the 24-hour rainfall. It's a mandate. the Hurricane Center is required to report their forecasts for intensity and track forecasts. Private sector doesn't have to do that to anyone. So what that panel said was they need the Met services to thrive and to survive. The other thing they said was it's about relationships, not about the sales. And specifically, it was mentioned in that year because Bahamas had just had Dorian. And the particular company that was replacing some of their equipment said they basically contacted them immediately after Dorian and asked, how can we help? It was not about, we want to sell you a million things, but it was like, how can you help you come back to where you were? And it was about relationship. So that is my follow-up to Belize's comment, and to ask for any other of our partners in the room, what do you think of what Dwayne just said? Is that something that resonates with you, but you have to answer to shareholders? So we want to hear your perspective, and from someone we haven't heard from as yet, I believe. Go ahead.
Yes, well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Maria Donoso. I'm the UNESCO Chair on Sustainable Water Security at Florida International University here in Miami, actually 10 minutes from here. So if you want to have a little visit during lunch or so, just let me know. Florida International University is unique in the sense that we really take into consideration our international in the title. It's not just there because it sounds cool or good. And our main focus in terms of creating capacities, not just formal studies where you come out with a diploma with a PhD or a master's or just a Bachelor of Arts. Our focus is mostly oriented towards creating capacity at the labor level, whether these are professionals, scientists, or decision makers. In that context, and I will talk a little bit about this tomorrow, but I will be here today all day and tomorrow. If you want to hear a little bit more about that, is that we have custom-made short courses for professionals. And those of you that are in meteorology will know that right in our campus is the Hurricane Center, the National Hurricane Center of the United States, which is the one that sends you all the time where the hurricane is, what is happening, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a very strong collaboration with them, but basically they are in our campus and we work with them. But as I said, when colleagues address issues related to water resources or atmospheric issues related to meteorology, we basically work with them in courses that are between 2 weeks, 1 week, and they could be presential or not presential. So these are oriented to professionals already in the field. So this is something that I think when you cater outside of the country, you have to take into consideration, because as Mr. Cabrera said just recently, the Caribbean on the continental side is quite different, not just in language, but in culture with the Caribbean in the eastern side. So you have to really make sure that these are the things that they need and not what we want them to want. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I will give the person behind you an opportunity because we haven't heard from them. It's ENSCO, I believe. Go ahead, please.
Hi, guys. So my name is Chastity Wright. I'm with ENSCO, and we're here promoting our MetWise product. But touching on what was mentioned, I myself am a meteorologist. I went to the University of Missouri here in the United States. I have a PhD in atmospheric science, and I've been with ENSCO for about 6 years as a meteorologist. And recently I've become the lead meteorologist, so I've been taking on some management duties. I'm here promoting our MetWise product, but I'm not a salesman. We, as ENSCO, we didn't send a salesman here. We sent a meteorologist. We sent 2 meteorologists because we care. So we're not just in it for the money. I mean, if we wanted to be rich, we wouldn't be in this business anyway, right? So we do care. And then with our product, we are always involved with our customers. We offer maintenance and 24/7 support if required. So we're always there. We can always help. And earlier we talked about internships. We do offer internships as well. We have an intern every other summer or so for meteorology. I've actually, as I've listened to you guys talk about recruitment problems and trying to retain people looking for careers, you know, not just jobs, kind of have this vision of how not just our product, but any product, if you kind of standardize what's used in universities and also what's used in your Met service, maybe that would help a little bit. So here in the United States, I know the National Weather Service uses AWIPS as their primary software for visualizing Met data. AWIPS is actually the foundation of our MetWise product that we're promoting here. But in school, I learned how to use AWIPS because we were trained for the National Weather Service. They wanted to train us on the same software that the National Weather Service used. So then when we were ready to find a job, on our resume, CV, we could say, hey, we have AWIPS experience, right? So that helped. And then when you start the job with the National Weather Service, you're already a few steps ahead because you know exactly how to use that software. So the same kind of thing could work if, you know, MetWise or AWIPS was in your universities, but also in your Met service, then the students are being trained on it. And then when they come to you looking for a job, they already know how to work with you and how to work with the software.
Thank you. We have one more, and then we're gonna move on to the next topic on my list here because we're fast approaching 10:30.
Thank you. And I apologize. I realized I didn't introduce myself last time. I'm Kylie Holland from Windborne Systems. And I very much agree with you that relationships with Met services need to be a relationship. It needs to be a give and a take, and ideally more of a give than a take. And I think the situation we're going through with NOAA is a real opportunity for both international partners, public, but also private partners to kind of step up for international meteorology. At Windborne, we operate the world's largest weather balloon constellation. We collect twice as much data as NOAA every day. And when, with the recent funding issues, NOAA came to us and said, as we've discussed, the radiosonde network is going down in a significant way. There are going to be forecast impacts, not just for the United States and the rest of the world. We and other private partners, including those represented in the room, are kind of answering the call. So we're rushing out 5 new sites at our own expense with our own staffing across the United States in a somewhat race against the clock before next hurricane season to replace the data being collected by the NWS's radiosondes in order to preserve the value of NWS forecasts, particularly for hurricane season. And this network includes, you know, sites in Cabo Verde and a new site in Puerto Rico. So very much focused on, you know, from the American side, Florida and Gulf of Mexico, but also preserving forecasting for Caribbean nations. And, you know, right now, all this data is going to be provided to NOAA at no charge through at least the next hurricane season. But we can, you know, we're very much open to opening up that data and opening up that network to other networks, to other hydromet agencies affected by loss of NOAA funding.
Thank you very much for that generous offer. I want to continue on this discussion in terms of how do we connect what has been discussed here in terms of reducing any kind of bottlenecks that we see in the delivery of services, whether it be directly by the Met services, by the private sector, or jointly. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing is saving lives, safeguarding livelihoods, and ensuring economic development. That's a very basic function here. And so what I want to ask next is, can we have some examples presented for how these kinds of partnerships, some of which have been described, how do you go about funding these? Because you have to answer to your director of if it's a big company with a CEO or if it's shareholders. How do you make the case for what you're doing and its value up the chain for the private sector persons in the room? Someone had their hand up. You want to have a stab at this?
Victor Casella with Hydromet. where across the world we have, as you know, offices in the UK, Germany, Holland, America, South America, Latin America. And we work with all the research institutions. And what we like to do is, I like to push is collaborations. So if one organization had success with a sensor of ours, we ask them if it's okay to share their successes with the other organizations. So this way you get the positive and negatives. If we sell a piece of equipment and it's not working out to the ability that the needs of the end user, we want them to know that as well, because we don't want to sell something that doesn't work, it doesn't meet your needs. So as long as we can make these connections, we help strengthen us, but we also help strengthen your organizations as well. And that's what I like to push on the research side. And we do that here in America with the Department of Energy's Atmospheric Science, Atmospheric ARM, the Atmosphere Radiation Monitoring Network, or the Ameriflux or the Euroflux networks. We make these connections. And when we do work with the researchers, and if we do donate sensors or we help them get it, we ask them to promote their white papers or their posters. And then we go to the different conferences and and work with them and see how they presented and used our equipment. So hopefully that.
Okay, I like that idea. So I'm hearing that sensors are often provided so that the Met services could test them and be trained in different kinds of technology. So that is one way in which you can collaborate with the Met services by having them be a test, essentially a test bed for your manufacturing and your software, perhaps, and then using those as use cases for the larger group of people that you're working with. I had another question, which was the question of a model, a different kind of model. Is there a franchising model in any of the work that's been done with Met Services where you have developed a relationship where that Met Service could serve as a kind of a franchise partner for what you're doing? Do we have any of those models in the room? Oh, it's okay. I was just checking because one of the things that we have, CIMH is not here, but they're a center of excellence, say, in satellite meteorology. And we've been having discussions with the Cooperative Institute for Satellite in Wisconsin. And so we've had, they're a big partner. And there's also CIRA, which is a big partner in terms of building capacity in our Met services. So every month, it's not going to be the same anymore, but there is an international training desk at the National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center. And every month, there would be a monthly weather discussion. And it included the people at CIRA, who are satellite folks, the people at CIMH, and all these weather service forecasters would join in from across Latin America and the Caribbean. And there'd be discussions of beginning with the big picture of what is the ENSO situation, what is El Nino doing, what is the MJO doing, and if there is a particular interesting case that we can examine from the satellite perspective, there would be a big discussion about it, whether it was a wildfire, a hurricane, sand and dust storm. And this has been a tremendous, tremendous help across the region. It has developed camaraderie among the Met services and the forecasters who participate in this. And so it was just one of those where you're collaborating, but not in a very formal setting, but it allowed for continued engagement. And so this center of excellence is another way in which perhaps the private sector could plug in, not directly to the Met services, but with the center of excellence and work with them. And there is a marine forecasting support center now at CIMH. And maybe that's one way that Edgar, I've been not allowing you to have a say, but maybe you can talk about how could the UN Decade for Ocean connect with, say, a CIMH?
So thank you, Arlene, and this is a very, very important question. I will go back to this cooperation because we have here the president of the Regional Association 4. You have talked about the Hurricane Committee, but there are several approaches that they are historically, but perhaps not well known or not well applied. On this ocean panel, for example, that we have discussion between the ocean and meteorology on the Hurricane Committee, but there is also all this tsunami coordination group that need to work together. So as you indicated on the UN Ocean Decade, yes, this is I mentioned that we have the tropical Americas and the Caribbean, and there are several initiatives. Perhaps I will recall one that is on coastal resilience, and because in this one of the coastal resilience, we have we intend, it's not yet complete, but we intend to develop 6 pilot sites in the Caribbean from 5 countries, and I will say from Colombia, from Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Dominican Republic, and Mexico. But all the support need to come for centers of excellence or regional centers like your center, you know, this is CMO, like CIMH, and others that we need to build. Then they need to have this opportunity to exchange with the global centers that are in the case of the one in Baleares in the Spain, the owners of this initiative that are in Bologna. So there is a full scope of cooperation that we need to use this ocean decade as an opportunity. So thank you very much for.
It's good to hear. I'm looking forward to hearing more about these 6 pilot cases because the marine environment is one that is a big gap in terms of our ability to provide the best skillful forecast. We have training, but we don't have enough observations. And so without the observations being that foundation, we are really, in some cases, really flying blind. And so it's good to hear about these activities in the oceanic space. We have 2 more minutes. And so someone else I had not given the opportunity to speak earlier, that I would give them, and then our panel will have some final words. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Terry Abram from Oceanography, which is a marine platform. Extending the Met Ocean out, we've been working with the Barbados Met Office over the last couple of years, very much in collaboration to extend their ability to forecast further out. So moving and getting you information and data at distance in the marine environment is exactly where we want to go. And we've been doing this because it is new to us. The platform is proven for other environmental work, but the actual data gathering that the Met Department wanted is new. So we've been doing that pretty much on par to develop the system. And coming to this meeting is first for us, and it's interesting to hear, but also extending this. It's a platform that can be shared, I think, or distributed over a string of islands. Smaller islands do not need to purchase or run these, but it could feed into many systems rather than being sort of owned by one entity and shared across the region.
I'm pleased to have you here because we tease the director in Barbados because he named one of them for himself. And he also, the other genius thing that he did was he named one of them for his minister. So his minister is very much an active champion for those new marine observations for Barbados. And Barbados is the easternmost island. So they have used your autonauts to extend their observation capability to the east, which is good for the rest of the region because they're the ones that usually are first hit by things coming from the Atlantic. So I would like to give our panelists, any final words that you might want to say here?
Well, this has been a good experience. Certainly, talking about these matters would have brought to the fore some ideas. We're certainly happy that the private sector is here and they're willing to work with us. They're willing to help. We have had such experience already where the private sector would have extended beyond, the transaction arrangement in terms of assistance, and we're grateful for that, and we certainly want to encourage that. From a med service standpoint, in terms of how we sustain ourselves, we certainly need to do the various analyses to see where we are and what are the gaps, and certainly work in an intentional way to fill those gaps so that we can deliver on the services that we are asked to deliver on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Gaps identified, and to address some of these gaps, perhaps we need to have more collaboration. Short-term secondments of skills from countries within the region where the skill sets are stronger to those where it's not so strong, to help them to enhance their human resource capacity. Find ways, perhaps working with our international partners, to engage our decision makers, to sell them on the importance of allocating more fund, having more stable, sustainable financing for our NHMS, and to tie the work that we do to national development, especially where it concerns economic development. Perhaps that could, would get to them. We have the CIMH, a very important institution, and I figure that they should have been here, but our needs as a region are more similar than they are different. So in terms of, we talk about working in silos yesterday, and we can't afford to do that. So perhaps it will be more beneficial, and it is more beneficial for our training needs to be handled as a unit instead of individual countries. And the CIMH, how it operates, can maybe be analyzed to see if there can be increased offerings, and that capacity to enhancing courses could be developed for those already in the profession, but who may want to sharpen their skills. And also what Scott mentioned earlier, the technical personnel, and it's very important. And I will just say quickly, our supplier, the company that supplies us in Jamaica, we have that type of symbiotic relationship. We help them improve their products by making suggestions, and they fly in at no cost to us to help us to solve our problem. So what you said is critically important.
Yeah, Arlene, thank you very much. And because the panel is on capacity development, no capacity building. So really we need to take in our mind, as Professor Donoso, for example, mentioned all the need to have a tailor. So there are the university, there are the regional centers, there is the complexity in the Caribbean for the languages, for the geopolitics. So it's a mind that we need to have. And also, so we need to cooperate. And when we are cooperated here with the private sector, or they say this tailored solution. So in our case in the ocean, so we implement this co-design, co-implement concept that there are several workshops that we have undertaken to listen to the users, and then to ask the manufacturers, ask to the private, to okay, come with good solution, and then we will try to implement together. So it's a very interesting panel, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss.
Is Danielle still online or no? Okay. So I just would like to end by saying thank you to everyone in the room for the active participation, for the examples that have been shared. We know that there are a few new ways that others can learn from for engaging with universities, for engaging with private sector, for engaging with other public sector to fulfill what are your obligations nationally, regionally, and globally. So thank you very much, everybody. And I have to say one thing. I became interested in this field. One of the reasons was because we had a few instruments at my high school, and we started to take observations. Very good, what is the equivalent of ninth grade geography teacher. I then proceeded to like math and physics, so that helped. Thank you.
Right time.